What if being good with money has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you act? It's a pretty wild idea, right? But it's at the absolute heart of Morgan Housel's amazing book, The Psychology of Money. So let's dive in and unpack some of the biggest ideas from it.
Sounds like a trick question, doesn't it? But here's the thing. It's a completely true story. And it's a story that really gets to the core of this book. Because it's a puzzle that makes you question everything you thought you knew about what it takes to be successful with money.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got Ronald Reed, a janitor, a guy who clipped coupons, lived a simple life, and just quietly invested his small savings into solid blue-chip stocks. And on the other hand, Richard Fuscon. We're talking Harvard MBA, a top exec at Merrill Lynch, living this huge, luxurious life. So, one of them dies a multimillionaire, giving a ton of it away, and the other one, he goes bankrupt. I mean, how on earth does that even happen?
Well, the answer to that puzzle is really the central point of the entire book. It's this idea that it's all about behavior over brains. That right there, that's the key that unlocks this whole mystery.
And Morgan Housel just says it so perfectly. He says doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. And that just totally reframes the whole conversation, right? Suddenly we're not talking about complicated spreadsheets or fancy financial models. Nope, we're talking about how people act. Think about it. A total genius who can't control their emotions can be an absolute financial disaster. Meanwhile, regular folks, they can build incredible wealth just by getting a few simple behaviors right. You see, Housel's point is that we tend to treat finance like it's physics, with these strict rules and formulas. But it's not. It's way more like psychology. It's messy, it's full of emotions, ego, all that human stuff. And your own personal experiences with money, man, that shapes how you make decisions way more than any textbook ever will. Okay, so if we agree that behavior is the key, what does good behavior even look like when it comes to money? Well, the book breaks it down into some really great timeless lessons. Let's dig into 3 of the biggest ones. All right, first up, getting wealthy and staying wealthy are 2 totally different things. In fact, they often require the exact opposite skills. I mean, to get rich, you got to take risks, be optimistic, really put yourself out there. But to stay rich, that takes humility. It takes a little bit of fear, almost a paranoia that you could lose it all in a heartbeat. The real genius is knowing when it's time to stop playing offense and start playing defense. Now this second lesson, it completely flips our idea of what wealth even is. We're trained to see wealth, right? The fancy cars, the huge houses, the expensive watches. But Housel points out something kind of funny. Spending your money to show people how much money you have is pretty much the fastest way to have less money.
So here's the big takeaway. Real wealth is what you don't see. It's the money you haven't spent. It's the financial assets that are just sitting there, growing. Not the shiny new thing parked in the driveway. It's so true. When people say, I want to be a millionaire, what they often picture is spending $1 million, which is, the literal opposite of being a millionaire. And that brings us right to the third lesson. Building wealth isn't so much about your income or your investment returns. It's about your savings rate. Housel has this great line. He says, your savings rate is the gap between your ego and your income. And how do you widen that gap? Simple. You desire less. You care less about what other people are doing. And get this, you don't even need a specific goal for all that saving. Just saving money for the sake of having savings, for a future that's totally unpredictable, that's one of the smartest things you can do.
But why? Why do all this? What is the actual point of building up all this wealth if you're not supposed to buy a bunch of flashy stuff with it? And this, I think, is where the book gets really deep.
See, the book talks about this psychologist, Angus Campbell, who did all this research into happiness. And what he found was incredible. The number one thing that predicts whether someone feels happy isn't how much they make or how big their house is or how fancy their job is. Nope, it's control. Just having a strong sense that you are in control of your own life.
And that is the real payoff. That's the whole point. The single greatest thing that money can buy is control over your time. It's the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That is true freedom. That's autonomy. And that, right there, is the highest form of wealth you can possibly have. So after laying all this out, the book kind of turns the question back on us, It makes you look in the mirror and ask, what is my own story with money? What's it really all about for me? So let's just do a quick recap of the big ideas we've talked about. Number 1, it's not about how smart you are, it's about how you behave. Number 2, real wealth is what you don't see.
And number 3, the absolute best thing money can buy is ownership of your own time.
And I want to leave you with this one last thought that really gets to the heart of it. Wealth isn't just about what you own. It's about how much of your life you own.